Next, we'll have Dr. Brad Thayer, who has his PhD from the University of Chicago with fellowships at Harvard and at Oxford as well. A very exquisite scholar, if I may say so, and one who I think can also speak well into this issue, especially transparency.
Thank you very much indeed, Ambassador Tan. A great pleasure to be here to join my esteemed colleagues today. My focus is going to be on the lack of transparency in the election that we had in South Korea on June 3rd, with early voting on May 29th and May 30th, the week before. In every democracy, the social contract is made between citizens and government, and that depends upon open, honest, and transparent elections. It's essential for stable democratic government, and as Ambassador Tan mentioned, this is a problem in many democratic states, including the United States, but was particularly acute in South Korea on June 3rd and its aftermath. And this is particularly essential for key allies of the United States like South Korea. Last week was the 75th anniversary of the commencement of the Korean War. That was a war in which over 1 million Koreans, South Koreans, military and civilian, were killed or wounded, and a war in which over 130,000 Americans were either killed or wounded. So at this time of solemn reflection of the sacrifices made by the South Korean and by the American people, it's important to consider the event of the South Korean election, to consider the Chinese Communist Party's actions and interference in that election, and the behavior of the South Korean National Election Commission. As my colleague, Colonel John Mills, just mentioned, the NAC is not transparent. Its problems are profound, and its behavior de facto breaks the social contract between the people of South Korea and their government. The NAC is not transparent in any respect, nor is it accountable to the South Korean government. It will not permit audits of their servers. It will not permit auditing of their software, of its processes, and of its computer equipment. In early voting, as mentioned and as seen in the video, and that will be discussed in a moment by our South Korean colleagues, in early voting there were many irregularities. My colleagues have mentioned some of them, and again my South Korean colleagues will also address these. But in early voting as well as the voting on June 3rd, there was evidence of double voting, evidence of proxy voting. There were abnormal ballot papers, as the video showed in some detail. There was mismanagement of ballot boxes. There were irregularities in the vote counting process, and there were anomalies in overseas voting as well. It's a long list, essentially, of major problems in this election. The gross irregularities in voting and in early voting on election day by themselves compel us to acknowledge that the election was a fraudulent one. An investigative agency must investigate the NEC, their servers, their computer equipment, and their processes. And I have to say that this is a pattern of behavior, bad behavior by the NEC, which is witnessed, of course, previously in 2020, in 2022, and 2024, and earlier South Korean elections. So, in conclusion, transparency is essential for legitimate democratic government and for the social contract that exists between all citizens of a democratic state and their government. And so it's very important for an investigative body to examine these issues, and for the NEC and for the South Korean government to provide full cooperation to address this issue. Pillar, of course, of democracy is that we must be confident of one person and one vote in any election, and the custody of that vote, of course, is going to be executed and sustained with fidelity and with the understanding that that will be a transparent process from beginning to end. The South Korean election on June 3rd fails in every account with respect to fundamental tenets of democratic vote and democratic processes. And therefore, we call in the report, again, as my colleagues have mentioned, the election was an illegitimate one. Thank you very much indeed for your attention.